Hi, my name is Richard Brown, Director at Abound Paraplanning. Welcome to today's 2-minute tip video. This is the second one of these that we've done, following the success of the first one and the comments that I received from advisors regarding TAC claims. Today's video is about anti-detriment payments. So I'll keep you about 2 minutes and just give you some quick points on what I consider to be relevant in this space. The first point I would like to share with you is what is an anti-detriment payment. It wasn't not so long ago that I didn't really understand fully what an anti-detriment payment was myself. I knew it was deduction a super fund could potentially get for a payment made to a deceased beneficiary, but how did it all come about? You have to go all the way back to 30th of June 1988, and then from that date on the government introduced contributions tax as we now know, 15% on contributions, concessional contributions going to a super fund. Now, it wasn't the intention of the government at the time to make this an additional tax, it was more a bring forward tax. So this anti-detriment payment squares away the previously tax-free amount that a spouse or a dependent child would receive as a result of someone passing away in the accumulation phase. They would get that amount tax-free. The government had then introduced the anti-detriment payment to square up the difference in the tax-free amount and the tax that's been paid on the contributions along the way. That's all it is. So there's a formula in which we calculate that amount from that date to the date of death, and it is on only the taxed amount. Now, having explained what an anti-detriment payment actually is, what I'd like to do is to just give you a few tips around anti-detriment payments now. The first is that an anti-detriment payment is paid as a lump sum as part of a deceased member's overall benefit. This payment is usually made within 6 months of the date of death at the latest, or within 3 months of the granting of probate. So there's a couple of points. The other point is that it's paid to a dependent beneficiary or child of any age. Now, in terms of dependent beneficiary, usually referred to spouse, it can be a former spouse or same-sex partner. A couple of points there, just to re-summarise. Paid within 6 months of date of death, 3 months from the granting of probate, it's paid as a lump sum, usually to a dependent. So that gives you a very good indication where the payment's going to go. As said earlier, it comes from the taxed amount of the superannuation fund, because not all, as you know, when you get benefits from a superannuation account, at the end there are taxable components and non-taxable components. This is from the taxable component only. So it's a refund of those contributions. Now, probably the most important point I'd like to raise today is that not all funds pay anti-detriment payments. Some industry funds don't pay anti-detriment payments. Self-managed super funds struggle to pay anti-detriment payments because the money's got to come from somewhere, and it can't necessarily come from a member's account. A self-managed super fund needs to have reserves in order to pay anti-detriment payments. So, without getting into the real nitty-gritty technicalities of an anti-detriment payment and who can and who can't, just something to think about if you've got a client or a member of a super fund that is unfortunately going through a terminal illness, then you may want to consider getting those funds into a superannuation environment that does pay anti-detriment payments. The reason for this video is I've had a couple of payments in the last 18 months. Hadn't had, I don't think, any before that, where the payments have totalled up to nearly $200,000 for 2 clients. Now, with respect to one of those clients, it could have been disastrous. Well, from a financial perspective anyway, because the person that was terminally ill called me and said, could you roll my superannuation funds into XYZ, happened to be an industry fund, right? Which I won't name today, to make it easier for the spouse, when I'm gone, to operate and manage their superannuation. I quickly said, can you give me a few hours to just do some research and come back to you? Upon doing the research, I discovered that this particular industry fund didn't pay anti-detriment payments. The other two funds that the client had in operation, for various reasons, did pay anti-detriment payments. So as I've just said, that these amounts added up to over $100,000. So when I went back to the client, that was the terminally ill client, and explained that, listen, if you do want to transfer those funds, roll those funds into XYZ industry-based fund, you can certainly do that, but it's going to cost your spouse $100,000. Well, needless to say, the client left things as it were, and I assured the client that I would help her spouse work through all of the relevant issues with all the relevant super funds and manage the estate process, which we did. And the client was $100,000 better off. Now, all I'm making those points is to just be aware of the issues that are around at the time when someone's got a terminal illness or someone passes away, just to look out for maybe there's an anti-detriment payment there. Some of the funds won't even tell you about it, so you need to ask for it. So today I'd like to summarise by going through a couple of those points that I've already raised. There are many more others. One that comes to mind before I do close off is that a lot of us have used this recontribution strategy to turn taxable amounts into non-taxable amounts within a superannuation account. That's fine, the strategy's okay, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but I'm just saying maybe, just maybe, weigh up that strategy against leaving the fund as it is and what would the taxable amounts otherwise be. Just a thought, alright? So just keep that in mind as well. So I'd like to just close off. I know I've gone more than 2 minutes, I'm sorry, but I thought that anti-detriment was something that we could all get a little bit of value out of. So just make sure it's forefront of mind if something does happen to someone or someone's got a terminal illness. Just watch out for it. My name is Richard Brown. Thanks heaps for listening in. Hope you got something out of that, and if anyone would like me to forward them the formula for the anti-detriment calculation, more than happy to do that, but it's available at the ATO. Bye for now, and hopefully catch up soon.